So in recent times, I had the opportunity to talk to a real-life female star or actress who is involved in a certain industry. And what she revealed to me are some of the most fascinating insights that I've ever come across in my entire life. When it comes to women, when it comes to attraction, female nature, and how to actually get more women, so to speak. In your life and in this video, I'm going to share with you one of the craziest insights or lessons that she taught me. So that said, let's get right into it. Now, one of the craziest things that I ever learned from this interaction, from this conversation, is that the man who is the least affected by women is always the man who women will chase the most, okay? I want you to let that sink in for a second. And the reason why is because if you're like most guys, if you're like the majority of men out there, the majority of men listening to this right now, you've been told your whole life that if you just show women how much you care, if you just show them how much you know the good guy that you are, if you just try to prove yourself to women in every way possible, if you make them feel special, if you treat them like a princess, that they'll choose you. But if you're anything like me, you've probably seen from personal experience many times in your life that this is just not how reality works, okay? The actual physical reality that we all live in, the real world actually plays by a very different set of rules, okay? And you'll see time and time again, that is actually not the guy who treats women like a princess that they want. It's actually not the guy who tries to prove himself. It's actually the guy who is the least affected by women, that women chase the most, okay? The guy who cares the least. You've seen it before, you've seen it. I know that all of you have seen this in your own life. The guy who bends over backwards for women. The guy who's always available. Always texting first, you know. Always there for women, always listening to their problems. That's the guy that always gets ignored. That's the guy that women always ignore. That they're not attracted to. That they want nothing to do with, meanwhile. The guy who couldn't care less in some cases. The guy who's actually abusive. The guy who actually literally treats women like trash. The guy who doesn't chase. The guy who doesn't overthink things. The guy who doesn't try too hard. That's the guy that women ultimately are obsessed with. But have you ever asked yourself why? Okay, the reason why is simply because the less affected that you are by women, the more that they will chase you, okay? Let me explain. The thing about women is that women don't just want a man. They want a valuable man, okay? They want a man who has options, a man who doesn't actually need them. Okay, because every woman out there, even if she's average, even if she just has average physical beauty and she's not crazy, she can get probably 100 men for every one woman that the average man can get. Okay? So what this means is that women don't want just any old man. They want a man who has great value, because when you're spoiled with, you know, the ability to basically pick and choose between, 100 different men, hundreds of different men, thousands of different men in the age of social media, when you're basically born with the ability to be spoiled like this, to pick whatever guy that you want, almost when you have access to 95% of men out there, just because of what you were born with. Just because you were born with physical beauty, how do you think that that person is going to react? How do you think women are going to react? They're going to behave in a way that reflects those options. This is why women are so picky, okay? They don't just want any guy. They want a valuable guy, and more specifically, they want the most valuable guy that they can realistically get. Okay. And so, The second that you start acting like a woman is your main focus. You send her messages, telling her that she's super special. She's super pretty, all these different things. Send her all these compliments. Buy her all these gifts. Spend all this money on her. That's when she loses interest in you, okay? To really understand this, we had to go deep into evolutionary psychology, you see. For thousands of years, back in the caveman days, men weren't judged by how much they couldn't impress a woman. They were judged by how much they could handle life. And so you had the guys like the warriors, the leaders, the risk-takers. These were the men who thrived. These were the men who got all the women in ancient times. Because women needed protection and resources. They were naturally drawn to these types of men, okay? But here's the catch. If you were to get into the mind of these ancient warriors, these ancient leaders, these risk-takers, the guys that women chased back in the ancient times, if you could get inside of their mind and see how they thought, these men were not sitting around thinking about women all day. What they were actually doing is they were focused on their mission, their survival, their power. And so women were never their priority. Life and survival was their priority, okay? Hunting, Getting food, getting resources, stacking resources. Stuff like that was their priority. And so ironically, what happened is that's what made them so attractive, okay? Paradoxically, it was the guys who were the least affected by women, who focused the least on women, who actually got all the women okay. So if you fast forward to today, these instincts are still there. Women are still wired to look for men who exude strength, independence, emotional control. In other words, women in the modern world look for the men who are unaffected by women. They're unaffected by a woman's beauty. They're unaffected by her mood swings. They're unaffected by her verbal tests. And this is what makes them rare. Okay. For woman, a man who's unaffected by all these things feels rare. Okay, let me give you an example from the animal kingdom. If you look at like male gorillas, okay, inside of a gorilla troop, there's always one dominant silverback, and he's basically the leader of the troop, okay? And if you look at this gorilla and how he actually behaves, he never begs the females for attention. He doesn't follow the females around all the time. And he's rarely ever actually affected by them. He usually just sits in his space, fully in control, completely unbothered by all the females. And guess what? The females, because of this, are drawn to him. They're drawn to him not because he's chasing them, not because he's trying to impress them like most guys would do, but simply because his indifference signals power, okay? His ability to be unaffected by women signals power. It signals that he has options, that he is abundant, that he, has access to women. Now, if you compare this to the young and desperate male gorillas within the same gorilla troop, who try way too hard to impress the females, these gorillas never get any attention. They never get any respect. They always get ignored by women, okay? And if they're lucky, they might be able to sneak in and mate with one of the females. When the dominant silverback is away or something, or, he's out hunting or whatever. Okay, but that's the only time that they get any sort of action. That's the only time they get any play. Okay, if you translate this to the human world, this should seem really familiar. Because human attraction basically functions the same way. Okay, so what this means is that a man who is emotionally controlled, a man who has mastered his emotions and his, ability to behave in a certain way around women, his ability to be indifferent, a man who doesn't react to women, doesn't react to their beauty, their tests, All these different aspects of women. Man who doesn't react to them, doesn't overinvest, doesn't need a woman's validation. That type of man, paradoxically, is the man that women chase the most. Okay, so here's where it gets even crazier. Have you ever noticed in pretty much anything in life, not just with women, but pretty much anything in life? Think about all these different moments in your life. I know you've had them, I've had many of them. Have you ever noticed that the moment in life that you stop actually caring, the moment that you just let go, suddenly everything starts to happen? Suddenly everything works out okay? The same exact concept applies to women. The moment that you stop caring, the moment that you let go. When you're interacting with a woman, which allows you to be indifferent, allows you to be non-reactive, nonchalant, the moment that you do that, suddenly women start paying more attention. Think about any situation in your life where you did really well with women, where you're getting super good results of women, where women were giving you great, tons of attention. They were super into you. I know all of us have had probably at least one moment in our life where that's happened, or at least a few. And if you think about those scenarios or situations, if you really drew them down, what you'll realize is that most likely all of that happened as a result of you stopping caring, as a result of you letting go and becoming non-reactive. That's why you got all the attention. That's why you had these women chasing you, and it's not an accident. Okay, it's not an accident. It's not luck. All of this is very basic psychology. Because when a man is unaffected by a woman, what it does when a man is nonchalant, it creates tension, okay? With women, and tension is what creates attraction. So the key takeaway here is that if you stop putting women on a pedestal, if you get to a point where you're genuinely not affected by anything, by any aspect of women, by their beauty, what they say, the way they behave towards you, the things they say to you, when you're genuinely not affected by any of these things, when you're completely indifferent to them, meaning they don't affect you mentally, emotionally, they don't affect you in a way that causes you to become defensive, reactive, nervous, stuff like that. Once you get to that point, something pretty magical happens. And that is the exact moment where you start emitting this paradox will energy, where women chase you. Women want to start chasing you. Okay, the man who is completely in control himself. The man who is totally nonchalant around women. The man who paradoxically cares the least about women. Who is the least affected by women. That is the man who women want the most. Okay, because at the end of the day, in pretty much every situation, it is always the man who cares the least, who gets chased the most by women. And that, my friends, is one of the coolest things that I learned from this actress, from this woman that I had this conversation with, okay? And it's when applied to your life, I promise you it'll change your life and your interaction with women in ways that you really couldn't imagine, until it actually happens. So that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and until next time, thanks for watching.